Hey guys, my name is Morgan and I am making this video right now because honestly, right off the bat, I'm just gonna say this video is gonna be all over the place. It's not structured, it's not planned out, it's just 1 a.m. and my heart is feeling heavy and I just feel this huge push and urge to make this video. As you can see by the title, I'm going to be talking about my sexual assault experience. And oh my god, the video just started and I'm tearing up. See, this is one of the reasons why I want to make this video, is because I am, if I'm dealing with it, someone else is dealing with it. And sometimes just knowing that someone else is going through the same thing helps, and it's been a few years, but it's, it still feels like it happened yesterday. But anyway, I figured that I would share my story and kind of, also just vent and get my feelings out there in hopes that, someone else, as long as one person watches this video and knows that they aren't alone, then this video has 100% served its purpose. So I'm just gonna apologize in advance. This video is gonna be all over the place. I'm not gonna edit it. I'm just gonna post it because I don't want to rewatch this. Yeah, but I'm gonna be talking about my sexual assault experience, unfortunately. Depression, anxiety, all the things that come from it. And I don't really know where to start, but I just want to say that, if you're watching this video, it's either because you have gone through something like this, someone who has, or maybe you're just, it's something that you fear will happen to you. And I just want to say that as much as you feel alone in this, you're not alone, and that's such a simple thing to say, but to people who have lived through this, like, we feel like it's us against the world. And I just want anyone who's watching this to know that you are not alone and you're not the only one going through this, and that there's someone else out there who understands your pain and understands the frustration. So yeah, another reason why I want to make this video is because for my specific situation, it did end, like the whole thing, it did end with the guy who raped me going to jail. And statistically, not many at all, like less than 1% of reported cases make it to imprisonment. The offenders, so little of them actually get prison time. And I wanted to tell my story from a different perspective because it's scary. It's scary holding someone accountable for their actions because you don't know how they're going to retaliate. And I'm going to get into that, but yeah, I'm just gonna start, and I'm just gonna tell my story and just talk as I go. So right now it's April 12th, 2020, and I'm 22 years old, and this incident happened in December of 2016. So I just graduated high school, that year. And what happened was I had, a little get together at my house. It was literally just 6 people, my friends from work. And obviously for privacy reasons, I'm not going to say any names or where I was working or anything like that. But one of my really close friends at the time, the get together, it was just a get together. So I told my friends that they could bring their boyfriends. Like, there was no problem about that. At first, I didn't think anything of it. So one of my really close friends at the time, she brought her boyfriend, and I didn't know him. I never ever met him before that night, but I was open to, I was like, of course, like I'm the type of person who's very welcoming, and I have open arms. So I said, of course, like you can bring your boyfriend. And yeah, and that night was, I'm sorry if I'm going like in and out, that night was definitely life-changing, to say the least. After everyone left, I told my friend, asked if she could sleep there, because it was late. It was like 2 a.m. or midnight, or I don't know, something like that. So I said, yeah. I was like, of course, you can stay the night. You and your boyfriend can sleep in the living room, like leave whenever you feel comfortable, that's fine. And pretty much I went to bed, and he took it upon himself to find his way to my room and take advantage of me. And yeah, so I was 18 and he was 23, which I didn't know until after. I didn't realize he was that much older until after. But yeah, so he came into my room and he took advantage of me. And this is something specifically, okay, so obviously, trigger warning, we're going to be talking about deep stuff here. So if stuff like this is going to trigger you, like, don't watch the video, I'm telling you right now. But I want to talk about this specific part because I feel like a lot of the guilt that we have as people who were raped or assaulted, a lot of that guilt and that source of pain comes from that moment in the act. So what happened for me was that I was sleeping and I woke up to him on top of me, and it registered in my head before I opened my eyes, and something just told me on the inside, like, not to fight back. Something told me that I would get even more hurt if I were to fight back. So I just kind of kept my eyes shut and just prayed for it to be over. And when it was, and he left the room, I opened my eyes, and that's when it hit me of what actually happened. And why I want to talk about that specifically is because I feel like people don't talk about our reactions. People are so quick to jump and be like, well, why didn't you stand up for yourself? Why didn't you fight back? And you don't know how you're going to react until you're in the situation. And for me specifically, this happened 3 years ago now, 4 years ago now, and every single day I still think about the fact that I chose to stay quiet instead of fight back. It's something that I don't regret, because I know deep down that God was protecting me. Something worse would have happened if I did fight back. But for me specifically, it was kind of that fight or flight thing that kicked in. And I feel like a lot of people, you get ridiculed and you get hate for saying, well, you should have fought back, you should have done something. And I just want to tell you that if you were in that situation and whatever you chose to do in that moment was the right thing. If you chose not to fight back, then you chose that, and you chose that for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't let anyone tell you that you should have done something, or you should have spoken up for yourself, because no one understands when you're in that situation. Because to have someone take advantage of you like that is the most soul crushing experience. You are laying there and you feel every ounce of dignity leave your body. You feel violated, you feel betrayed, you feel weak, you feel like you're nothing, you know. And that moment of deciding what to do is a moment that will stick with us forever. Even if we know that we made the right decision, whether it was to fight back or not, that's a decision that we have to live with for the rest of our lives. And I don't know, I really just want to tell you guys that whether it was you or someone you know or a friend or anything, if they're confiding in you and they, you know, tell you that they react a certain way, don't question it, okay? Because we're already questioning it enough on the inside. We're already beating ourselves up for no reason, you know. We already feel like, you know, it's a sense of weakness, and we don't need other people to ask us, you know, why you didn't do this or why you didn't do that. Yeah, but that moment was really hard, and, you know, sticks with me every single day. But that's the decision that I made. And when, you know, he was done, I waited a few minutes, and I remember I kind of just sat up, and I just got sick. Like I couldn't, I felt like I was just sucked of every ounce of like self-love and dignity that I had. I have never felt so low before in my life, and immediately I was like, I need to call the cops, you know. Like right away I got up, and my friend was staying on the floor. My other friend, not the one whose boyfriend did this, but another friend that I had, she was staying over as well, but she was in the floor under me. So I went down to her room, and like she could just tell that something happened. And I remember as I was walking down the stairs, I saw him carrying his girlfriend to the car and getting in the car and just leaving. And that's when it really hit me that I was raped. And, you know, I was distraught, I was a mess, but I called the cops right away. And that as well was a decision that was really hard for me to make in the moment, because when something like that happens, even though your mind understands that it's not your fault, you know, your heart and the rest of you just instantly starts to self-blame. You know, you instantly think like oh my god, like should I even speak up? You know what I'm saying? Like was this, as you know, you just go through a whole series of emotion. You go through every emotion in your head. And the reason why I'm explaining it, because, you know, like obviously if I went through it, other people went through it as well. And I just really want whoever's watching this to know that whatever you went through, like I understand. And it's, you know, from my experience, like that's just what it is. You go through those feelings of, oh my god, like why did this happen to me? Why did this person do this? And then your mind switches up, and it's like, well, what did you do? You know what I'm saying? What did you do? You know, even if you know that you did nothing wrong, you just feel like it's somehow your fault. And I just want you guys to know that, like, it is in absolutely no way, shape, or form your fault. No matter what you were wearing, no matter what, you know, how you were acting, no matter how you were portraying yourself, if you did not give permission, it is not your fault. You know what I'm saying? If you did not consciously say, you know, yes, I'm down for this, it is not your fault. No matter what you were wearing, no matter how you were acting, like if you, for someone to take advantage of you, that is completely on them. They completely made that decision in their own, you know. And I'm saying this because I know that the world and society has a way of victim blaming and has a way of saying, well, you know, well, if you were wearing this, or if you know, we're talking like this. And it's like, no, if I never consented to it, that's rape, you know. Like, and in my case, like, you know, I was literally, what also made it so hard was that it was in my own home, you know. Like, I was sleeping in my own bed, in my own home, a place where I was supposed to feel safe and protected, a place where I invited someone into my home with genuine emotions, you know, like with a genuine intent to just have them be comfortable. And they took advantage of that. And that was really hard. But anyway, so I decided to call the police, and pretty much they came, and then they called an ambulance, and the ambulance took me to the hospital. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't physically hurt that bad, you know, but I was obviously distraught. My heart rate was through the roof. They needed to take care of me, so they brought me to the hospital. And you know, they did a you know, like the rape kit, and they offered me to have injections, like shots, to prevent HIV and STDs. So I opted for that, and honestly, that was the most painful shot that I've ever gotten in my life. They had to do it, you know, like on the side of my thigh, like my butt area. And I just remember, you know, like from the moment the cops showed up, they were asking me questions, and in the ambulance, I was being, you know, interrogated. Like, they had to do their job, you know. They were interviewing me at the hospital. It was just detective after detective, and just everything, every single moment, from the second I woke up to this second now in time, every moment has been a struggle. And, you know, some days are worse than others, but it's something that I live with every single day. And I just really feel the need to just speak and vent, because, like I said, if I'm living with this every day, I know damn well there's millions of other people who are living with this every day. And I want to tell it from my perspective, because I know not many people at all experience the justice that is meant to come from these situations. And that's really, you know, like the main part that I want to get to. But so, you know, I left the hospital, and honestly, the hardest moment started for me after that, like, 24-hour block. It was like 24 hours after the whole situation took place is when it really started sinking in, and it really started hitting me. And I remember I was home, like I came back home, and you know, like I switched bedrooms. I moved to another bedroom because I couldn't even step foot into my own room without feeling like disgusting. And I remember the day that I came home from the hospital, I was sitting in my bathroom over the toilet because I just couldn't stop throwing up. And it was like I was in the back of my mind just observing myself break down, and my mental just took a huge turn for the worst, and I just started getting really I wouldn't say suicidal, because I wasn't going to kill myself. I didn't want to die, but I wanted to be dead, if that makes sense. You know, I wasn't going to kill myself, but I laid there on the bathroom floor and I wanted to die. And that was hard in itself, because at the time I was 18, and 2 years before that, when I was 16, I went through something else extremely hard, and I went through a phase where I did things that I knew could possibly take my life. So to be back in that mindset, to see myself fall back into that mindset, was just absolutely terrible. And it was like I was just watching myself deteriorate from the inside out, and I just felt so much self-hatred, and I felt disgusting, and I felt violated, and I felt like ripped of my dignity, and I didn't feel safe. It's just crazy how something that happens in the physical, you know, the physical pain of something is truly nothing compared to the emotional and mental pain. Because, you know, after a few days I wasn't physically hurting anymore, but those were the days where I was emotionally in the most pain that I've ever felt in my entire life. And, you know, hours felt like days, and remember, I just didn't know what to do with myself. And then I would jump back and forth through these mindsets of, you know, like, oh, you're being over dramatic, it wasn't that big of a deal, you know, because we're so used to seeing society downplay these major things that happen in our life. So bouncing back and forth between, you know, you're being dramatic, it wasn't that big of a deal, and then jumping to the extreme opposite of feeling completely degraded and used and just stripped of my power. You know, those emotional highs and lows take a toll on you a lot, and that was really just the beginning of the pain. So, you know, after that, you know, it was weeks and weeks that I just kind of sat around, and, you know, I'm thankful to have, you know, the friends that I had who, you know, would come over. And I remember my one friend, you know, like, she came over and she picked me up and she took me out to eat. And yeah, so I'm thankful to have the friends that I have, and I'm still friends with them, but it just hurts me because I know that a lot of people don't have the same type of support that I had, and for me to remember how painful it was, and then to imagine being in that situation and not having anyone there for me, like really fucking kills me. And that's another reason why I'm making this video. You know, it's for the people who are sitting on their bathroom floor feeling like they have nothing left and no one to talk to. Like, I want everyone to know, you know, like, I'm that random stranger on the internet that you can come to. Like, I'm that person that will read your paragraphs. So if anyone is feeling like they just have no one there for them, like, I want whoever's watching this to like feel comfortable to message me, because we need to stick together, you know. We need, even if you do have people around you who are supportive, it's not the same as talking to someone who has been there as well, because it's really something that, unless you've lived through it, you have no idea the effects that it has on you. Yeah, so so the next few days after that was just filled with talking to reporters, not reporters, like police officers and detectives. And I remember so what happened was, the night that it happened, I was in the hospital. It was like 3 or 4 a.m. that I was in the hospital. That when I got there, by the next morning, by like 10 or 11 the next morning, the detective who was assigned, you know, like to my specific case, told me that they had enough evidence right off the bat to go and take him into custody. So that's what they did, and obviously I didn't see him at all, but the detective was telling me that, you know, obviously he couldn't tell me a lot, but he pretty much told me that upon their interview with him, you know, it was stated that the situation occurred. I'm trying to be careful with what I say because you know, this did involve court and all that stuff, and it sucks that I have to watch what I have to say because, like, I'm the one who fucking lived it, but yet I'm sitting here watching what I say. Anyway, so the next day I went to the police station for like an official interrogation, and I remember the detective who was doing my case, he sat me down at the table, and it was just a table, 2 chairs, and a video camera. And before he turned the video camera on, like, I could see it in his eyes how sincere he was being to me, because he looked at me and he was like, listen, I'm so sorry that I have to do this, but I have to interrogate you as if you're lying. And that was the first moment that I realized that doing the right thing by reporting it was going to be the biggest battle that I ever faced, because I realized that society does not just believe the victims. And he looked at me and he was like, I'm so sorry that I have to ask these questions in a way that talk down on you. And you know, so he turned the camera on, and I had to go through the entire night in every single detail, and that was hard. You know, it was reliving the whole thing, and it literally just happened. And the questions that they were asking me, it was like they were trying to attack my character and trying to attack my integrity, you know, which I understand to an extent, but, you know, and he had like a format that he had to follow of questions, but and made me realize that the way they approach a victim is not in a comforting way. They did not, and I'm not blaming it on the detective because he was truly doing his job. He was reading off of like a script. They do not have any type of sympathy or compassion. They just come at you so rough, you know, like some of the questions were just like, you know, did you do anything to prompt that behavior, you know? And it's just so like sickening. And so the next few days were just filled with me doing interviews and talking to detective after detective after detective. And they, you know, 2 days after they brought him into custody, they had more than enough evidence, and, you know, evidence that they collected and evidence from the source himself that it happened. So they arrested him, and 3 days later his family posted bail for him. And I remember that was really scary. That was really scary for me because, you know, in the beginning I thought, you know, oh, I did the right thing, you know, I reported this and I did the right thing. But then I realized that doing the right thing doesn't always come with like the safety and comfort that you think it would come with. And I totally understand why people don't report these things, because the police don't treat you like you're a victim. They treat you like you're someone who's lying until it's proven. And in a lot of these cases, you can't really prove it, you know? And so overall, I thought it was going to be a quick process, you know? I thought that, you know, with all the evidence and things that were said that confirmed that it happened, I thought that, you know, it would only be a few weeks before he was arrested and charged. But I was very, very, very mistaken. And so I'll go into detail, but to sum it all up really quick, it took 2.5 years for him to be officially arrested. 2.5 years. I had a total of 13 court cases that I had to show up for. So what it started was the very first hearing was pretty much just the judge going over what happened. And nothing really happened the first time. I had a lawyer, of course, and I know he warned me that unfortunately cases like this, he told me off the bat, he was like, you know, I'm going to fight as hard as I can for you, but I want to be upfront. Your case will probably not ever make it to any type of conclusion. And I just didn't accept that. I was like, absolutely not. Like, there's no reason why he should be let off the hook for this. Even putting all the evidence aside, I was just shocked that the court system just didn't even have the time of day to go over my case. And, you know, we went to the second court hearing and they were pretty much like, okay, yeah, like, the facts are still the facts, we'll schedule another court meeting. And mind you, these were all like weeks and months apart. By the fourth, oh, okay, so I'm sorry. So the first, from the second, third, fourth, and fifth court cases, he just didn't show up, the guy. And he was out on bail, so he was still living his life. and you know, I was supposed to show up and he was supposed to show up. Actually, I didn't even have to show up. That's the thing, I didn't have to show up at all. But I sure as hell showed up, because I knew damn well if I didn't show my face, they would just throw my shit in the garbage. And they try to do that anyway. Even when I did show up, they try to do that anyway. But you know, me and the supportive people around me, obviously I want to keep, you know, things a little bit confidential, but I had supportive people around me who came to every single meeting, to every single court thing with me. You know, I had people who took off of work every single time to come to these court meetings, just to sit there for 2 hours and be told that the guy never showed up, so they're just gonna reschedule it. This happened at least 4 or 5 times. So you could imagine the frustration of, not only for me having to relive this, walking into that courtroom, anticipating to see him, anticipating something to go on, for nothing to happen. Even besides that, I had to drag my supportive, you know, family members through this every single time. You know, it was just as hard on them as it was on me. You know, they had to call out of work, they had to sit there, we spent all day just in that energy of that situation. And but I didn't give up. You know, they by like the 5th or 6th court case, they tried to have it dismissed. And you know, me and my lawyer were on the same page at this point. We were like, oh hell no, like thank God for the lawyer that I had, because he didn't give up on me. He totally could have just, you know, let the system do whatever, but he saw how passionate I was about getting justice. Not just for me, but for every other person who didn't even get close to getting justice. And, you know, he fought for it, you know, and so pretty much that just kept happening over and over again. So to fast forward, so there was 13 total court cases. By the 10th one is when the judge finally came up with you know, the terms of his plea. So me and my lawyer, we came up with, you know, what we wanted to approach the judge with for what we think his sentencing should be. And the judge settled on, so before they found him guilty or not guilty, you have to settle on a plea of what will come after you are convicted, if you are. So the judge settled on maximum, so the maximum he would get for this was 5 years in state prison and registered on Megan's law, and the minimum that he would get was parole. Fucking parole. Yeah, so it could fall anywhere in between there depending on what the judge thought of the situation. So by the 10th case, you know, obviously by the 10th case, we were already over 1.5 years into this, and I was just so fed up. And at this point, it wasn't even about me anymore. At this point, I walked into every single court case with the intentions of bringing justice to every single person who did not receive justice, because I was past being outraged for myself. At this point, I was outraged with the system, and I was feeling the weight of all these men, women, adults, kids who are abused and don't even get close to receiving justice, you know? Like, I had damn evidence, and it still took me 2.5 years just to get a conviction. And and they kept switching the judges, and they, you know, and then once the judge was switched, then we had to pretty much start over, and it was just, they were really trying to get my case thrown out. So anyway, it was just bullshit like that. And then by like the 10th or 11th case, it was in the talks of whether this will go in front of to trial or not. And the thing with trial is that I would have to get up and restate everything that happened to me in front of a jury, and then the jury would decide if he was guilty or not. And we really didn't want this to happen, because if it went to a jury, statistics showed that I had little to no chance of winning this case. So, you know, by God's grace, it didn't go to trial. And so the second to last court date, the 12th court date that we were at, I remember at this point it just marked 2 years. So the 12th case was in December, around 2 years exactly of when this happened. Mind you, 2 years of him living free, living his life, continuing doing what he's doing, and 2 years of me, you know, reliving this situation, having to walk into that courtroom and feel that energy all over again. By the 12th court date, it was to the point where they offered me to speak to the judge and to the courtroom, and they told me this ahead of time, and I said yes. You know, I showed up for I showed up for all 12 court cases at that point. If I was given the opportunity to speak, I was gonna take it. So I did, and I wrote a letter. You know, I wrote up a letter to read, and that day, that was honestly probably the hardest emotional day, the hardest day for me emotionally that I had since it all happened, because I had to write down what I thought, what I felt, and just not my side of it, because they didn't want you to explain the situation. They wanted you to speak on it, pretty much saying why they should get convicted or not, but like in an indirect way. So I decided to use that opportunity to speak to the judges. I decided to use that opportunity to speak on behalf of everyone who didn't even make it to the point where I did in the justice, you know, cycle. So I pretty much just started the letter off with the statistics of how many rape cases get reported, how many don't get reported, and how many don't get a conviction at the end. And you know, it was kind of directed towards him, yes, but it was really, I really wanted to bring light to the judges that me being one person standing up there was only a fraction of the people who have lived through this. And I honestly I believe on everything that that letter was the only reason that I had the outcome that I did, because after I read that letter, things just changed. I was done giving my power away to people. I was done letting other people determine whether I deserve justice or not. And if you guys are curious, like, I'll post screenshots, like I'll post pictures of the letter at the end of the video. I don't know, maybe it could help some of you. I don't know. I'll just post it. But I remember walking up to the stand, and it was fucking terrifying. You know, I had my family with me. His family was on the other side. He was standing up in the front section of the courtroom, and I walked up there, and you know, I had to do my whole little swear-in, and I stood up, and my aunt was standing next to me. And I remember as I was walking up there, I felt like I was gonna pass out. And I was just like, oh my god, like this is it, and I feel like I'm not gonna be able to get through it because I'm gonna pass out. And I remember I was reading, and by the second paragraph I wrote, I think there was about like 5 short paragraphs. Yeah, I took that opportunity, I snatched that up to speak on what I felt needed to be spoken on. And by the second paragraph, I, you know, felt myself about to throw up, and I was shaking, and my voice was, you know, barely audible. And I just remember closing my eyes and just like asking God to get me through it, pretty much. And like all of a sudden, like this burst of energy came through me, and it's like all that confidence and all that dignity and all that self-love that I was lacking for 2 years just came back and flooded me. And it was like an uplift of energy that allowed me to get through it. And, you know, in a split second, it was like something took over me and I stopped shaking. That throw up that was in my throat went away, and my voice, you know, got louder and confident. And as soon as that switch in me happened, as soon as I felt my power come back to me, his father stood up in the pews and started yelling at me and was like, you this and this, why didn't you this and this and this and this? And I was like, no, I'm not giving my power away again. And instead of stopping my speech, I just talked over him, and I just got louder and louder, and I was just speaking. I spoke over his voice, and I just drowned it out until he was excused from the jury, and I still didn't stop. I just kept talking, and I think, you know, that was a moment where I felt like a purpose needed to be served through me. I felt like a message needed to come out to make the judges in that room understand that these situations are serious. And, you know, to this day, I really do believe that, you know, God gave me that extra boost to help me fulfill that purpose of getting that message out there. Because I didn't know why, you know, I would walk into those courtrooms and I would be like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I reliving this every single time I walk in here? But something just kept telling me that, you know, you need to, you know, you have an opportunity that, like, not many people get. And that was the first time in 2 years that I was proud of myself. And honestly, to this day, that was probably one of the proudest moments that I had, because I didn't let my fears overtake me. I didn't let my emotions consume me. And after I read that speech, you know, I felt a whole type of energy lift off of me, and that, you know, that was it. I spoke, and they had to sit with it, you know. And then the next court meeting was when they were going to announce their verdict. What was funny was that after my speech, his lawyer tried to say that my speech was attacking his client, and the judge was just so not having it. Like, he was just not about that. He like totally had my back on that, thank God. So yeah, so that was in December, and then in January was, okay, so a little less than 2.5 years, like 2 years and a few months, the end of January, beginning of February, I remember because it was right before my birthday, was our last court date. And that one was a heavy one. That one was really heavy, and because it could go in any direction, you know. He could have gotten off and found not guilty, you know, he could have gotten anything from just a few years or months on parole all the way to state prison. So there was a lot on the stakes there. And I remember I walked in there and my lawyer, you know, he was hyping me up. He was like, you know, like we got this, you know, like your faith is strong, you fought this hard, like just keep believing. And I remember, and because it was the day of the verdict, they had, instead of having him, the guy, just like sitting freely in the pews, they had him like behind, escorted in by police, because it could go either way at that point. So I remember we sat there, and I remember the judge, you know, the judge had him stand up, and I remember I just like, I braced myself and I just closed my eyes, and my aunt was holding my hand, and I remember the judge saying the defendant is found guilty, and that was the first breath of relief. And then when the judge said that he was getting issued the maximum sentence of 5 years in state prison, like, that's a feeling I could never ever like relive again. Or it was just like in that moment, everything that I did was worth it. Every ounce of pain that I endured during those 2 years was worth it, because it was more than just him getting arrested, you know. It was the fact that my letter made an impact. You know, the judge went from not caring if he got parole to sentencing him to the max sentence of 5 years. And the fact that so before that my lawyer told me, he was like, so we kind of have an idea. He was like, if he's found guilty, they'll probably fall between 3 and 4 years. So even if, so going in there, my expectation was if he's found guilty, he would only get like 3 years. So the fact to hear that the judge issued him like the full max sentence just really showed that like I was able to make some sort of impact on the justice system, because those 2 years, it's like the system could care less about me in all the other cases. And then it's like as soon as I had the platform to speak, it just changed everything, and it made me realize how unjust our systems are and how they rule in the favor of, you know, the attacker versus the victim. And I remember just looking over, and I remember watching them put handcuffs on him, and he looked me dead in the eyes, and I stared right back in. I was like, I am not looking away for shit. Like, you do not hold power over me anymore. And I just looked him in the eyes and I just smiled. I couldn't even help it. I just fucking smiled. And they put him in handcuffs and they walked him out the side door. And it was like a new life for me. It was like a new life starting for me. And I didn't realize again at the time that feeling of justice was going to be so short-lived, because now it's been 1.5 years since that happened, and they're putting him up, they're giving him the chance to be eligible for parole. And I didn't expect for all of this to, I don't know, I didn't expect or plan for the day that he would be coming out of prison. And it made me realize that the process of getting the offender persecuted, you know, like I said in the beginning, doing the right thing doesn't always feel like the right thing because it's scary. And that's why, you know, that's another reason why I want to make this video, is because all of these things that I thought I healed are coming back up, and it's making me realize that this situation that will never leave my life. I will live with this forever and ever, because right now, as I said, it's been 1.5 years and he's eligible for parole, and I find myself being extremely scared and kind of pulled back in to that energy, you know, not to its fullest extent, but you know, I realized that it was little things. You know, I started struggling with a portion of my self-love and a portion of my sense of security, and it wasn't enough to, you know, fully break me, but it was enough to shake me and make me realize that this battle is really never over, because I have to go back. I don't have to, but I will go to his parole hearing and speak on why I think he should continue out the 5 years and not get let off after only 1.5 years served. And you know, it's kind of just like reliving this again, and it made me realize that the people who don't get the chance to report these things that happen, you live in a sense of fear knowing that, you know, so for the first 2 years of him being free while we were going to court, I knew what it was like to be in fear of that person around your general presence, you know. I feared running into them outside, you know. I had severe PTSD. He had a common name, and every time I heard the name, I would get, you know, flashbacks. And I remember, like, it would happen at work sometimes. And it was just really embarrassing because, you know, I worked in fast food, and, you know, a customer would have the same name as him, and I would hear, you know, their order be rung, and I would freeze up, and I would just have flashbacks. And the people around me, you know, my coworkers would be like, "Are you okay? Like, you're in the middle of working right now, and it's not something you can just explain, like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, it's just PTSD." You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just say that. And it made it really difficult to live my life and to feel safe, because I always feared that he would be around me, or that he would try to hurt me for me, you know, reporting this. And, you know, I would be out, and my mind would make me see his face everywhere. And then on the other side of it, I also experienced what it was like to have him locked up. And it, you know, in the time, it brought a sense of safety to me that he was behind bars and he couldn't hurt me. But now I'm dealing with a whole new sense of fear, because it's more than the first go round of me, you know, fearing of running into him. And it's more than and it's less than the, you know, that safety of knowing that he's behind bars. And I find myself being scared that he is going to have more hatred in him now than he did when he was when he was first locked up. And I'm being very open and vulnerable right now because, like I said, I know that there's people out there who are dealing with this, and I want to speak on all parts of it. I want the people who didn't get the chance to report it, and have their justice. I felt that side of it. And then for the people who did get their justice, that brings a whole nother level, a whole different level of challenges, because you feel safe for the meantime while they're locked up, and then you think about them coming out back into the world, and you hope and you pray that they've learned their lesson. But in reality, jail makes people hostile and angry. And it has me scared for, my mental and my physical and my emotional health, because I don't know how he's going to be coming out of this. I don't know, what mindset he's in coming out of this. He could be coming out with rage and anger towards me, and that's really scary. And to think that I'm gonna have to spend the rest of my life in fear is not something I have learned to handle yet. And one of the hopes that I have for this video is that I can find people or find a community that can relate to this portion of it, because so many people don't have the outcome that I did, that it's hard to find people who understand this aspect of it. And I also want to clear up that just because someone does report it and go through with it does not mean that their battle is over. It's just the start of a whole different one. And I just want people to know that they're not alone, and that there's other people out there who are struggling with this. And I feel that it's really important that we can, find each other and find a community that we can be open about these types of things without any judgment, because this isn't something that I can just, talk to anyone about. This isn't something that I can talk to my family about, because that's uncomfortable for me. It's not something that I want to bring up. It's not something that I can convey to my friends. I can vent to them about it, but if they don't go through it, they don't understand, and that's not their fault. That's not their fault at all. And that's another thing, is I feel like if you do have supportive people in your life, you kind of feel guilty for still being upset, because you sit there and you think well, I have these people who are here for me, and I have these people who will listen to me, so I shouldn't be upset. I shouldn't still be feeling these things. But it's okay to still feel those things, because that feeling of being alone is not going to go away no matter how many supportive people you have around you. And it's hard because, you know, like, at least for me, like, I don't want the people who do support me to think that they're not doing enough, you know, because they are. It's just, you know, it's deeper than that, it's more than that. And yeah, I just want to share my experience and my struggles, just that, and people don't feel alone. And the thing with healing is that you can heal, you know, 99% of the damage that was done. You know, you can reclaim your power, you can reclaim your dignity, you can find self-love again, you can find peace in your body again. But if there's that 1% of you that is still hurt and in pain and fearful, then that 1% is going to affect you every day, you know? It's just because most of you is okay doesn't mean that that percentage of you that is not okay isn't going to impact you, because I feel that impact every single day. And, you know, the other thing with healing is that it's okay to have ups and downs. It's okay to, you know, think that you're making progress and to make progress, and then have days where you just hit rock bottom again. Like, it's okay to have those days. You don't have to feel like you have to get over it, because in reality this is something that is going to live with us forever. So pretending that it's okay and pretending that you're healed from it, you're just doing more damage to yourself than if you were just to accept that part of you is still hurting, and that part of you will always hurt. Because that's a truth that I didn't want to accept for the longest time. I wanted to think that I was stronger than this, and I wanted to think that I could overcome this. And I had to realize that yes, I am stronger than this and I can overcome this, but it doesn't mean that a part of me isn't going to still feel that heaviness and that pain, you know. And I don't know, I'm still in the middle of it, you know. I'm still in the middle of figuring out and understanding and accepting that a part of me will always be affected by this. And, you know, I know that we're all at different stages and different parts of the, you know, these types of experiences, but, you know, I just wanted to say that it's okay to not be okay about it, because I was hurting myself more by making myself be okay about it. Because yes, this is really painful now to allow it to all come back up, but I know that the pain I feel now will be worth the healing that is to come from it. But I can't achieve that healing unless I allow the pain to come, you know, to resurface, to come back up. Yeah, so I know this was kind of all over the place, but like I said, if my story can help at least one person know that they're not alone, then it served its purpose. Yeah, don't talk yourself down from these things. Don't tell yourself that it's not a big deal. Don't tell yourself that, you know, you're not worthy of love anymore, that you're not worthy of self-acceptance, because society really has a way of making the victim feel like they don't deserve to hurt and that they don't deserve to feel the heaviness of it. And it's really, you know, becoming one of my goals to you know, create an area or like just a community or a platform where we can be open with each other with no judgment, no matter where we are, you know, no matter whether you kept it a secret for 30 years or whether you spoke of it right away. I don't want there to be any type of judgment. I want us to all understand that no matter where we are in the journey, in this heart-wrenching journey, at the end of the day, we all experience the same type of thing. And it's really, you know, you think that there's a lot of resources out there about it, but there's really not. Like, it's really hard for me to find, you know, like online resources, let alone in-person resources, where I can just speak on my experience and just let it all out, because sometimes just talking about it and just putting it out there, you know, it releases part of it. It releases the energy. Like, sometimes I just want to talk about it. Like, I don't want advice, I don't want pity, I don't want comfort. I just need to get it out so that part of me can just keep releasing that energy. And I feel like we really lack resources like that, and especially during this time, you know, where the whole world is on lockdown and we're all kind of forced to sit with our traumas. I think this is a really important time for online resources specifically targeted towards, you know, sexual assaults are formed. Yeah, so that's really all that I have to say. Again, like, I don't want anyone to feel like they're alone in this, and I'll leave like my Instagram in the description, so if anyone like if you feel like you need to talk, like, message me. Like, I really will answer. Like, I really will hear you out and I will listen to you. And, you know, if you want advice, I can, you know, try my best to give you advice. If you want me to just listen, I'll just listen. If you want to just send paragraphs and not have me respond, then that's fine too. Like, it's just, I know that if I'm feeling alone, other people are feeling alone, and it's really important that we find each other now before we slip back into the mental and emotional state of just pure pain. That's all I can describe it as, is just like pain. So yeah, that's it. Again, I will put screenshots of the letter I wrote at the end of this video for anyone who's interested in reading it. Yeah, so that's all I have to say. If you got this far, you know, thank you for hearing out this, you know, watching this video. This was extremely hard for me to record, and I don't know if I'll be posting it right away. I'm going to really try to, but I have never ever opened, you know, myself up like this or been this vulnerable, especially on the internet. And I know that I'm gonna get, you know, I know that you know, I am someone who, like, I'll admit right off the bat, people's opinions get to me. I'm working on it, you know, it's a work in progress, but people's opinions, you know, do have a way of getting to me. And I know that putting this video out there, I will definitely most likely deal with you know, hatred, and that's gonna be really hard to handle. But then again, I feel that the purpose of this video is greater than any hatred that people could spew at me, because at the end of the day, what people say is only a reflection of who they are. So yeah. So that's all I have. Thank you for watching this video, and you know, if you want to talk, I'm here. So that's all. Bye.